So, okay, while we're on the topic of Lebanon, I will move on now to, rather than just talking about the pager attack, to talking about what is happening now and what's going to happen. So it's full-blown war. It is going to be a war on two fronts, which is precisely what Israel, for the survival of its state, needed to avoid. However, that doesn't make it a good thing. Doesn't make it a good thing at all, because Lebanon is obviously going to be fucking destroyed in the coming war, which is coming, make no doubt about it. There is simply no way that Israel is going to be able to just do what they have done in Lebanon and follow it up with like a bombing campaign, which they are doing right fucking now. They killed 37 people in a massacre today. And let me show you. Lebanon doesn't have an air force, so they can't really do anything about this. At least 37 killed in Israeli strike in Beirut. And I guarantee you that fucking Loner Box is going to defend this. Of course he is. They're all going to be defending this. Because there might have been two Hezbollah guys in there. Come on. Now, a war against Lebanon, which would probably extend to be a war against all of Lebanon and not just Hezbollah, let's be real. Israel could not handle that. If they're struggling so much with Hamas, aside from the killing civilians part, which they would do a lot of in Lebanon, make no mistake. If Israel cannot defeat Hamas militarily, they absolutely fucked against Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a million times stronger than Hamas has ever been. And Hamas or Islamic Jihad and PFLP and every other group in Gaza combined could ever possibly be. Even with complete air superiority, Israel is just a state of immense military incompetence despite all the support that it gets. A state of cowardice. All of their soldiers are already like pissing their pants because they've been to Gaza and they don't want to fight. They don't want to be involved in another conflict again after what they saw there. So against Hezbollah, they are going to have a lot more trouble, even more trouble than they did in the last war in Lebanon. But the thing is, even if it wouldn't be easy for them, even if they would probably lose or at least be stalemated in a military sense, it would result in the utter destruction of Lebanon. Because we already know how Israel conducts what it calls war. It is to just blow up a ton of civilians. It's very funny that people even try to frame what Israel does as like targeted attacks given the civilian death ratios of other modern wars. For example, the civilian death ratio in Syria is something like 15-20%, the rate of civilian death to combatants. For Israel, like the unambiguous, like even if you said something ludicrous, like every single man in Gaza is a combatant, then okay, they have killed 56% of their victims have been clear civilians. But obviously that's not true, so it's even worse. It's more like 80-90% have been clear civilians. And that is what would be set for Lebanon. And what the Lebanese can do in retaliation is heavily limited, obviously, because Israel has a free pass from the world powers to do whatever they want to Lebanon. By free pass, I mean they probably won't like it because they don't want it to escalate that much. It's not that great for them to have it escalate that far. However, they're not going to like literally attack Israel, right? They're not going to like take any real action against Israel. They're just going to sort of say, come on, guys, maybe don't do it. This is bad for us. Maybe don't go too far. But if Lebanon was to retaliate against Israel in kind by actually attacking Israeli territory in any sort of meaningful fashion, then the response from the US and other Israeli allies would be military. If not like direct military participation themselves, it would be like at least advising, shipping more weapons to Israel and stuff like that. So it's obviously a lopsided thing. Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that Hezbollah and Lebanon as a whole would militarily come out on top, but it would cause such immense suffering for Lebanese civilians. Israel would cause immense suffering for Lebanese civilians. That is something to avoid. And, certain people who call themselves Lebanese would be celebrating that suffering. Not naming any names here. Like, God, imagine calling yourself Lebanese all the time and leveraging that as if it makes you some sort of authority on Palestine, Israel, Lebanon, etc. And then the second that your supposed country is getting attacked by Israel, again, you side with the fucking Israelis. You cannot make it any fucking obvious where you come from. So the initial, pager and phone attacks and shit, whatever else there was, those were clear and obvious indiscriminate attacks. Those were war crimes. You cannot simply kill people because you say they are in Hezbollah. Even if they are in Hezbollah, as a militant organization is going to have people who are militants but who are not active combatants anyway. And it's going to have a ton more people who are civilian members of the organization who are basically bureaucrats or doctors or, social workers or whatever. It's like attacking a fucking DMV worker because they're technically paid by the US government all the same as a soldier is. That's obviously an unjustifiable, indiscriminate attack. And everything that's coming after that, like the way that these people frame Israel as a victim is fucking absurd, because obviously Hezbollah's attack on Israel are in support of Gaza. They are in support of people who are being massacred and genocided in Gaza. It's not like happening in a vacuum. It's not like they just randomly decide to start launching missiles at northern Israel. The Israeli victim narrative relies on decontextualization, where these sorts of factors are ignored, obviously. But even if you do you pretended their narrative is somehow legitimate and worth responding to, the attack itself is a clear violation even of fucking liberal international law. So they have no ground to stand on.